Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Performance Analytics Academy. We're going to get started right now. So to let you know, welcome for coming. This session is for you. We're recording it. We'll post it later. And an important note, if you have questions as we're going through, please put them in the Q&A window in Zoom. The chat, a lot of things get lost. So if you have a question, you don't have to wait till the end. Please just click on the Q&A and put it in so we can answer it as we go. And at the end, once we're doing the presentation, answer the questions with the session today, feel free to ask anything you want dealing with performance analytics and reporting, and we will try to answer it for you. So again, please use the Q&A. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Adam Stout. I'm your host today, Outbound Product Manager for Platform and Now Intelligence. And Thomas Davis is going to be presenting for us today, Outbound Product Manager as well for Platform and Performance Analytics. And now I want to hand it over to Thomas to talk to us about index indicators.
Okay, can you hear me, Adam?
Yep, good. We see your screen.
To unmute, and I was already unmuted. You can see my screen as well?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, good. All right, here we go. So thank you, Adam, for the introduction. And today, just like Adam said, we're going to talk about indexing some indicators. So hopefully this is something that you have dabbled in a little bit or you've had interest in doing. And hopefully what we show you today will help you with that. Obviously, it won't take into consideration every scenario and situation. So if you find that what we give you today is just not enough, or maybe your use case is a little bit more advanced, then definitely hit us up in the community and let us know that. We'll definitely take questions here in the Q&A. But if it's a little bit more advanced, we may have to have a sidebar, via the community or something like that. So with that, let's get started. So what is an index indicator? So the easiest way to really encompass this is to say, okay, I want to be able to take multiple indicators and score them together. Right. So if you have a collected score and it's weighted, and then you take 2, 3, 4, 5, however many indicators that you have in there, and you basically weight those based on how many that you have in there. So maybe if you had 5, maybe you would do it 1/5. If you had 3, you would do it, 1/3, so on and so forth. So basically that in a grand scheme is really what it is. It just gives you the ability to bring multiple indicators into one indexed indicator and weight that, so you can take all 3 of those and get an overall look of what's going on with those 2, 3, 4 whatever indicators that you have, an incident process or things of like that. So it just gives you that ability to bring all those in, and then it's a percentage of a target achievement. So whatever you have set that target at, it's going to let you know where you are based on those indicators, if you're there, above it, below it, or whatnot. So that's what it is. So a little bit more information. So again, it scores of multiple indicators, and they're aggregated into one score, and they're weighted. It's the weighted average of several of those indicators, the weighted sum of these indicators and proven, and it's the calculated score of the index, and the formula can go, up and down or whatnot. And then, the principle behind it is you want to take a calculated score value. So in the example that we're going to do today, it's weighted, there's a target of 100. So we want to make sure that we're getting there. And this is a good way of doing that. So you want to make sure that you have a target or a weighted value of where you want to achieve and put that in there. And the only way that this is really going to work is you have to have targets that are attached to those particular indicators. So it's hard to sort of get that weighted, value that you're looking for if you don't put a target on the indicators. And the indicators, each of the indicators that are inside the index indicator itself can actually have different targets. They do not all have to have the same target, because again, it's going to look at those individually and then see how they roll up with the other ones to that holistic 100% or whatnot that you're actually looking for. So it's very important that you make sure that you have targets attached to the indicators that are within the index indicator itself. So you can, use methods from the PA formulas utility if you choose to. You can use the get gap. You can actually put that into the index, the formula of the index indicator, and we're actually going to do that today. So you're going to see that. And here's an example of that, so 100 plus and then 100. So this is gonna, look at the minimize in what we're doing today, and it's going to say, if it's 100 and all of the indicators are minimized and we're able to reach that, then that's a good thing. And if they're not, the numbers, because we're actually setting a direction on it, it'll show red, green, or whatnot based on where we're trying to actually go with it. So it will and it can utilize those utilities. So if you're familiar with those, or if there's other ones that you want to look at, then the link is there for you to look. And we actually talked about these a few months back when we were doing, the Academy on just formula indicators in themselves. So it actually will use, some of that same stuff there. So again, as I said earlier, you want to make sure that you set a target. In this case, we're going to set a target of 100. And then for the index indicator itself, and then all of those that are in it are trying to reach that particular target and see where we are with that. So again, it can use the PA formula utilities if you're familiar with those as well. So believe it or not, right, that is the big picture, the way that these things are or the way that they work, and you'll probably get a whole lot more out of it with the demo. So I want to get straight into the demo, and because we got a relatively long one today, and hopefully that will generate even more questions for you. So what we're going to do today, so here are some ServiceNow docs that you can actually use, and these were actually used to build up this academy, and then some of the things that we're doing inside of the demo. And our use case, and I'll just go ahead and sort of read this: the performance of processes, services, groups, etc., are usually tracked and monitored using more than one indicator. When viewing and analyzing performance of these process, business, service, or work groups, the overall picture can be confusing and ambiguous. So what is the overall picture? Is the overall performance of the process service group still at or above the desired level? Did the overall performance improve? So we're going to create an index indicator that's going to answer all of these questions. So the indicators that we are using are already created in our instance, and most likely in yours as well. If they're not and you actually want these, then definitely hit me up on the community, and I'll walk you through actually creating those as well. But these are the 3 indicators that we're going to use today inside of our index indicator. And then there are our directions, and then there's our targets that we're going to set for each one of those. And these are the roles that are required. So no different than a regular formula. That's the role that you're going to need. And of course, we're going to create some targets. So there's the roles that you're going to need for that. So with that in mind, let's start creating. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually go in and create the targets for each one of those particular indicators that we're going to use. So the first one that we're going to look at is the average resolution time of resolved incidents. And you will see me make typos. I'm not a great typer, but we're going to go and look for that in the analytics hub, and then we're going to click into it. And then we're just going to go right over to the top right where our target icon is and click on that. And we're just going to create our first one. And for this one, we're going to use a target of 17.5. And then for our data that's in our instance, and your data may be completely different, or most likely will be completely different, you can set whatever target date going back. And for us, based on the data that we have here in this instance, we're just going to go back to December the 4th. And once I add that, now you can see the actual target is there, and there's our line. So simple, probably something that you've done before, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to set those targets for the other 2 indicators because we are using 3. So we're just going to go through that same process again real quick. So in this case, again, we'll go right back to the analytics hub, which I find the easiest way to do it. And then we're going to look for % of incidents resolved by first assignment group. And when we go into that, we'll set our target of 70. And again, I'm not a great typer, which kind of slows down the demo. But once we get into that, we'll do it just like we did the one before. We'll click into it there. We'll go into the targets, and we'll go ahead and add 70 with the same date as well. 70, and we're going to use December 4th as well. And again, once you add it, it will become visible, and there it is. So we'll do the same thing for the last one that we're going to use inside of the index indicator, which is % of new critical incidents. And we'll go to that one, and we'll add a target of 5. And again, your targets obviously, will be much different. You may have to decide what those targets on based on the data that's in your particular indicators. But for hours, we're just going to go ahead and use 5. And again, December the 4th, we'll set it, and then we'll add it. And now all of our underlying indicators for our index indicator now have targets for all of them, which are vitally important. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is now we're going to create an index formula indicator for each one of those underlying indicators that we just did. So the very first one will just be index of average resolution time of resolved incidents, which, if you remember, was the very first one that I actually put the target in. And our direction will be minimize, and we'll give it a, we're going to create a unit of index. So you just click new, and we'll just type index there, and then we'll submit that. And then we'll do a precision of 2, because we are going to look at an average, and 2s are important. And then I'm just going to go ahead and paste in my formula, and that formula is down at the bottom here in the screen, and you'll have that formula as well in the PDF. So you'll actually be able to grab that if you need. And then I want to show it on the Analytics Hub, and I'm going to do apply time series to it. And then I click update, and then I want to go back in and I want to do some time series exclusions. So sums are not going to work with average. So I just want to go ahead and move all of those over to the exclusion list. So I won't actually see those and have to scroll through all of those, finding what I need when I'm inside the Analytics Hub. So just go through there and grab all of those, move those over. There's probably a faster way. We just move those over, and there we go. And now we save that, and that one is done. I'll go ahead and hit update. So now we're going to do the same exact thing for the other 2. And the easiest way to do this, and what I'm going to utilize, is the insert and stay option. So I will just go right back to that first one that I created, change my name. So now this will be index of % of incidents resolved by first assignment group. And then I will change, I think everything will stay the same except for the formula. So I will go and change that formula, and I'll paste in my other formula, which again, you can see right here, and I'll insert and stay with relation. So it keeps those time series exclusion lists that we want. And then I'll go through the whole process again. And now I'll create one for index for % of new critical incidents. Same thing, I'll put in my formula, and all that's changing in that formula is just the underlying name of the indicator, really. Insert and stay with relation, so I keep my time series exclusions, and then we're good to go. So now you can see that all 3 of those are there, they're created, and they're ready to go. So we have created, really quick, some targets, 3 targets for each one of our underlying indicators. And then we've created the 3 indexed indicators for each one of those individual indicators. So now let's, and one thing that I did, and I thought it would read a whole lot better. So I'm just going to go back in here and change, and I'm putting index 4. And this is something that you can do. And if you're not familiar with it, you can go directly to the indicator list and just double click on it. I'm just going to take the word of out and put the word 4 in. I just, as I did it and I looked at it, I think the name of it would make a whole lot more sense if it's index 4. So those are renamed now, so we're good to go there. So now what we want to do is we want to make that one index indicator that is going to take all 3 of those indexed indicators that we did just previous, and we're going to combine all of those into the formula inside of the indicator itself. So here we're going to set maximize, and then we're going to paste in. And if you can see there are all of the indexed indicators that I just created with those underlying indicators. And I'm going to click save. And again, I want to go and I want to remove all of those sums because they're just not going to make sense. And data can look obscured when you use the sums when you're not really looking for that. So I'll remove all of those out so I don't have to worry about those when they're inside of the Analytics Hub, and then also on our dashboard as well. Once I get all those done here, a couple more. There we go. 2 more. Good. So we'll move those over. And again, that formula is right there, and it'll be in the saved PDF as well. And now we've created that indexed indicator which encompasses all of those underlying index indicators. I know I've said that a couple times, of the original formula indicators that we actually used for that. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to create a target or a couple targets for my index indicator, the incident management process. I want to actually create those for there. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to grab that, go directly to targets from indicators, and I'll grab that. And then I want to use the 3 light color. So I'll select that. And then I'll go up to the top, right click and save. And then down here under the target value, I'm going to add a target of 100. So this is where we use the 100, where it's going to take all 3 of those and see if they all 3 together meet that target value. Again, I'll go back to December 4th. There's the 100. And another one that I want to add in is I also want to add in, and I'll go right back into it. I want to add in a time series. I want to do an insert and stay for time series of 7-day running average. So here I'm just going to do an insert and stay, so it keeps everything. So both of those are now attached to that index indicator. And I'll go in here and actually I think it restarted. So yeah, I just wanted to use the same exact thing as before. I just now wanted to do the 7-day running average as another target that's attached to it. So one thing that I wanted to do, and as I was doing this, I felt like the name probably could be a little bit better as well. So I'm actually going to go to the index management process index indicator, and I'll go in that and I'll show that in the analytics hub. But I want to change, and you can see we have some data there, but I want to change the name to that. So I can go directly here and edit the indicator, and I'm just going to call it incident management index, which now makes a whole lot more sense. And one thing that I did fail to do, and before I go forward, I should definitely mention it because I'm a big advocate for it. I didn't use descriptions on anything that I did today, which is really uncommon for me. I think descriptions are very important. So I would definitely recommend to you that you put descriptions in for all of these different things that you have done. That way you can help the next person when they come in. If they don't have to recreate, they can reuse. It's much better. It's just a big thing that I think is really underused, and I failed in this demo by not adding those, but definitely do those in your own instance as well. Okay, so now let's validate it. So what we have, and I created a dashboard here. So this dashboard that you're looking at, and we're going to look at it live here in a second, but what this dashboard here is showing is it's showing our holistic number, right? This is the index indicator that encompasses all 3 of them here. And here are the underlying indicators for each one of their indexed indicators that make up this holistic, this very top level incident management index indicator that or widget that we're looking at here. And what this is doing is this is just a time series. It's kind of just showing you the way that this number is moving, over a time period. And then these are all of these, which are individually comparing to one another. May not make sense when they compare to one another because you can see some big variety in the data here, but when they sort of come together, they will, make sense and give you that big picture. So with that, let's just let me go to my instance here real quick. Here we go, let me log back in. So here you can see that same exact dashboard that we were looking at in the image. So now let's actually go in here and do some things so we can see the numbers themselves change. So you can see that we have targets set at each one of these, the very bottom level indicator. So if we were in all of these green, this is saying, okay, this is good. This is the direction that we want it to go. This one is not, and this one itself is not. So this one was a target of 5. This one is above. This one was a target of 70. And it's below, and this one was a target of 17.5, which actually should be, it's under it, so it is fine there. So if we actually go in and change these, and the way that this, before I get there, the way that this works real quick is that if you were to take all of these numbers that are here, and you take 136.19, and you basically, do the math at 33% of this whole number, all of these together, if you did that, would come up with this particular number. And you're more than welcome to do that math. It definitely works, but it's giving that whole level. And we wanted to reach a target of 100, and we're actually reaching that now. So let's just go into one and let's just add another target, right? So I want to add another target to see if I can't perhaps change these numbers. So what I want to do is I'm going to add, oh, that must have gotten changed. That actually should be changed. It should be 17.5. Let me just go ahead and save that. There we go. But let's go ahead and add another one. And what we'll do is I want to make this time, let's say we'll do it 10 again. And then we'll go back again. We'll just go back a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning of February 1st. And when we save that, you can see that we changed our target at a particular date. So now when we go back to the dashboard, we'll see a change overall. Well, we were supposed to see a change overall. It looks like
you got it set to 10.
Excuse me?
The target was 10 before, and it's 10 now.
Oh, that's right. Good point. Good point. Let me just redo that then. I'll go back. I don't know how it got changed to 10, but I'm gonna go back and change that. I'll leave that there, and then we'll make this target. Maybe we'll make it 5. There we go. Okay, so now we have the change there. So now when we go back to our dashboard, we'll see a change. Okay, so now we're obviously not meeting that 100 target that we're looking at because this one has now failed, or this one is now above the 5 days. Before it was underneath it, so it was good, but this one has went above it. So now that's going to bring down our total target of all 3 of those together to let us know that we're not meeting, 100% or 100 our target. We're not attaining it. We're not achieving it. But if we go into something like this one here, that we have a target set of 70, and let's do the same thing. So let's change this one. And let's make this one 50, and we'll go back to February 1st again. And when we save it, it's going to go a little bit lower here now. So now when we go back to the dashboard, we should be, well, I didn't give it enough, but you can see that it was ticking back up. So maybe if I'd have made it 40, perhaps it would have brought this, holistically all the way back up to 100. So the big thing with this is it gives you the ability to take, could be 3 completely different indicators that are looking at 3 completely different things. Now, obviously, these are all looking at incidents, but something completely different in the incidents. But you could take all 3 of these and you could say, okay, there's an overall target that we know what we want. And we want to make sure that all of those together we're able to achieve that. And I believe I saw a question in the community, and I think it was a few years ago, where someone was actually doing 5 different indicators. And let me turn the pause notifications. Sorry about that. They were doing 5 different indicators. So theirs, if you remember, in the total index indicator that I created, I was doing 1/3. Theirs was set at 1/5. So as long as you know whatever that math is for each one of those indicators, you can add those in there and you can get that overall number and see whether or not you're actually able to achieve it. So, it's a very powerful, quite often people want to see how an indicator compares to another indicator, or how an indicator, when they're added together, what type of number that they're actually able to or are achieving with that. Index indicators is the way that you can do that. And before I actually go back to the slide deck, Adam, I just want to kick it over to you, because I don't know if there's something else that you want to add to this that maybe I've forgotten inside of the demo here in the analytics or on this dashboard.
There's something I'd like to show. Can you open up the formula for Incident Management Index? Go to that indicator and open up the formula. We had a couple questions about this, and I think we can address them here. So we did the very simple use case of even weights. So the real secret to this is we're doing 1/3 times each one. Well, if I wanted to weight it to be can you change the 1/3 for all those? Make that 0.3 for the first one, 0.3 for the second one, and 0.4 for the third one. That now they're not equal. I could do, you still want them to add up to 1 generally, but we could also do 0.25, 0.25, 0.5. Actually, why don't we go ahead and do that? Change the 0.25, 0.25, and 0.5. And that gives us unequal balance, right? But what we want to see. Also in this, we're letting the good overcome the bad, or the bad overcome the good. So if we exceeded 1 by 200%, that would compensate a lot for others, and we saw that. And I think in the first case, we had 2 bad components, 1 really good one, and so we ended up being good. Well, we certainly can cap these. So this is just JavaScript. We can do whatever we want to do. If we want to put a max in there, we could do that. So if I wanted to say that on the index indicator that you can't be more than 1, we absolutely can do that, right? We're not going to let anybody get more than 100% on a test. There's no extra credit. Perfectly valid. This is the formula where it lets you handle that. And as we go through, again, because we do JavaScript, we can do whatever we want to do here. The other formulas where we were using get gap and get global target, well, there's also get breakdown, get element. You can put more logic in here to say this group doesn't have this one, right? Maybe there's 3 metrics that are combining for group A, but a different set of mine don't have 4. That's fine. You can actually choose which formula you want to use. You can handle nulls. What happens if a great example in this case, what happens if there's no critical incidents, right? But there's just no, so how do I handle 0, or whatever the gap is? Perhaps we want to put something in that handles that and adjusts accordingly. All of that is possible by tuning this section. So if you want to go ahead and click update, and look at the dashboard and see how that changed what we did by weighting the factors differently.
Oh, wait a minute. Actually, didn't look like it changed.
It didn't change much,
Yeah.
but I think it did change. And with that, again, you can tune those. One of the things that is really important about this too, we've done indexing indicators for PA has always been able to do them, but we use the hard-coded targets. The other part that I really like about this, using the get gap, get global targets, as we see in this demo, is that as the targets change, our scores change as well. And also, we're doing global. This is important. This absolutely works if we go down to groups, or if we use breakdowns.
Right.
And a very important part about using get global target is that it adjusts. So whether the date change, the target changes over date, or different groups have different targets. So maybe my incident resolution on first call group for my one set of groups, it's 50% is my target. Another group it's 70%. That's fine. The overall index handles that, and we're not managing you to what was the percentage resolved, but how close are you to your target, right? So very, very intelligent. The more you use your targets, the better this gets. You absolutely need to set the direction, you need to set the target, but it scales. It's one of the most important things we can get is that we get away from comparing absolute numbers, and we set individual targets for the individual groups. We set the overall targets of where we want to see it as well. And then we have a 100-based index that I can now compare. How well are you doing your job, meeting your expectations? And the example I use is, this is my bonus, right? These are my KPIs. And if my average resolution time goes up, my bonus should go down. But if my percentage of new critical incidents goes down, my bonus should go up, right? Again, it handles all of that. The formulas really help here. We used to have to worry about, do I minimize, maximize, add, subtract? The get gap. The gap is always understands positive and negative based on minimize, maximize. And again, we're breakdown aware, time aware. Really, really powerful when you start layering these things in there. And now I can compare groups of different sizes with different expectations, but I can still index everybody to a score of 100. There was a follow-up question in here.
Yeah, I think what you just said about the groups having the different targets, I think you were able to answer Jamie's question, because I think that closely aligns directly with what they were asking.
Yes, and I think with that, not only go different targets, but different indicators in some cases, right?
Right.
The more spread out you are, the worse it gets. We want to have the same indicators so that we're measuring the same thing. Often what we see when we first start rolling this out is every group, they define critical incidents differently, right? It might be, I have P0s and you only have P1s, right? So my critical are P0s and P1s, yours are P1s. They put weird exceptions in. So we want to get to standard indicators first. And then the targets certainly can be adjusted. There's different expectations in different places. When you put them in, if we were going to do groups, we would do a breakdown by group, and we would set different targets for every group. That it's a bit cumbersome. To be clear, it's a bit cumbersome. If I have 200 assignment groups and I want to have different, and I want to group 100 with this target, 100 with that target, I actually have to set 200 different targets to go through, but they can be set by date. They can, you can put them in, and then we can have those different expectations. But again, the index score is how are you doing to the expectations? And they do not have to be, this is a great example. We're adding percentages and days. We could have CSAT score. It doesn't matter. It's just how am I doing in comparison to the target for this? What percentage optimal? So hopefully that answered that one. And then the other follow-up that came in, if your index indicator is going to measure against progressively targets, can we set those targets in the future? Yes. So absolutely, I can set my targets. This is what I want for the quarters. If you're interested in setting targets, which I hope we all are, you're going to be interested in what's in Quebec. There are some enhancements coming in tomorrow in Quebec with our release. We'll be talking about those in future sessions about what you can do. But if you go look at the release notes, you'll see we have been listening to you and some of the things you've been asking for and how do I set targets. Though there are enhancements coming for targets tomorrow. So hopefully you'll take advantage of those. All the formulas will still work if you're using them. And again, you can set them in the future. You might have to go to the target page to do it because they won't show up on the Analytics Hub, but you can set them. And all targets, the default today is that once you set a target, that is the target until you change it. So, but you can go in and set them that this is, I want to get better every quarter. And also I like this example because we're already doing index indicators. We're doing formulas and formulas, and you absolutely can, right? So average resolution time percentage, rather than just hard-coded numbers, we can do hard-coded numbers, but we can do those percentages. You can derive those values. I could do, my target could be I want to reduce my backlog by 10%. We could certainly build an indicator a formula indicator that calculates that and then put my index on top of that. So it's pretty limitless on how you want to build these indexes, but then I can compare everybody across the entire organization on how they're tracking to their goals, their targets. I think you might only want it a minute, but they're my thoughts.
No, I that's why I wanted to call on you, because I knew that you were definitely going to go probably deeper. So thank you for that. So one other thing to note, that you don't have to create the individual indexed indicators that we did that were then encapsulated in that the index management index indicator. You don't have to do that, right? You don't have to do those individually. You can put them all into one, like you can see in the example here. The only caveat to that is that it doesn't give you the ability to see these numbers individually that make up that total number. So if you put all of these, or if you create all of these inside of one particular formula, even though they're calling all of these, then you wouldn't be able to see these individual numbers that make up that, which may not be a big deal. So just know, for if you don't want to create all three of those, or however many number that you have, you can get around that by creating a formula like this, where they're all added into the same exact one. But again, it does sort of limit you a little bit on what you're actually able to put into widgets. So just be aware of that. So So here are some useful links that you can use. So, and these were all referenced inside of the lab or the session itself. There's some ServiceNow documentation there, and a lot of this came from a knowledge lab from a few years ago. So you can definitely get to that as well. And then the one that I referenced, where there was a company a few years ago that did 5 of them. Here's the actual article. And they were having some issues with the breakdowns, which Adam talked about how you can definitely use it in breakdowns. But inside of this particular question, it was actually answered how to resolve that. So that's a good one that you can go to as well if you start running into some things with your breakdowns that you may find some help is there. So some great stuff that is out there that'll help you walk through this. And obviously now you have this Academy session that you can reference back to as well. And with that, questions, I think we've already started answering some questions, but we can go and see what we got here.
So one comment came in, and it's good to know about target color schemes. So this isn't a question, but I'll read it because it's helpful. The target color schemes, the target colors are all derived from gap, the gap to target, not the actual value. In reporting, we can set the actual value, but performance analytics is geared toward targets, so you're not setting your target thresholds based on absolute numbers, but based off of the gap to target, which means to see the colors, you do need to set the targets, which we highly encourage people to do. Set your targets, nurture your targets. You're not getting the full value of performance analytics until you are managing those targets along with it. And again, check out the release notes. We'll talk about it later for targets in Quebec, because there are enhancements to help you better manage them based on feedback that we receive.
So I think the other question that came in is a different subject. I mean, if we're good to go to those, but if there are any more questions on indexes.
Yeah, so please go ahead and drop in any questions you have. We'll answer everything we can. So the question that we got in is, we have a breakdown widget visualized as a pivot scorecard with pivot elements of the app owners, and the app owners are shown as a breakdown the y-axis in no particular order. How do you sort the names alphabetically? I believe in the pivot scorecard, we cannot set the sort. Lists you can. Lists we can change everything, but the pivot scorecard is where we're showing multiple indicators. Multiple indicators against one axis, against a breakdown on the other. I believe that's the pivot scorecard that we're talking about. And in that case, it's I thought it was actually shown based off of the alphabetical name of the values, but I'm not sure that you can check. I'll have to check really quickly. Thomas, do you know offhand if there's a sort setting in the pivot scorecard?
On the breakdown widget, no, but I can look real quick.
All the settings for the indicators, and they do vary slightly. They're either there's going to be a sort field or there's not a sort field. There aren't any tricks, and there are cases where you can't sort. And the ones that you can sort are set that way. I believe there is an idea in the idea portal for this. So if we can't do it, I know the pivot scorecard has a few enhancements that people have requested. So feel free to look through the idea portal and upvote any ideas or add anything that we're missing there on how we can improve these for you. But I think if you didn't see the sort, we're not going to see the sort.
Yeah, I'm looking now, Adam. I'm trying to see.
So as it's going into, I will make a couple plugs as we go through. So again, please feel free to add any questions, otherwise we'll wrap up a little bit early. So the next few sessions we have set up for us are dealing with looking at what's in Quebec. So Quebec is going to be released tomorrow. The documentation is already released. You can go ahead and look at the release notes if you like. And we'll be talking about some of those new features, the new analytic and reporting solutions that are available for you, so new out-of-the-box content, and then new features in reporting, new features in performance analytics, lots of great stuff. Some of it is going to be available only in workspaces, but a lot of stuff, a lot of really, really good stuff that again, many of you have been asking for is coming to going through there. Another question came in, so we'll answer this one. Is there a way to report on multi-line text variables on request items? I believe there is not an out-of-the-box clickable way of doing it. We've talked about some similar things in the past. It's very similar to survey questions. I believe if we actually are going to report on multi-line text variables, that we would need to use a view to blow them out. I think that's how we address it, but I'm not positive. That is a good one to put into the community because we can see how people have figured out how to do it. I'm actually not positive if the multi-line is stored in another table or it's JSON. But it's certainly not simple to report on them, to get them out. And I'm fairly certain that is on the roadmap on how do we address that, but I believe even in Quebec we're not able to do that. If anybody else on the call wants to correct me, then I'm happy to be corrected. All right, and another question. We went over metric. Sorry, Tom, were you able to find the pivot scorecard?
No, I was not. I don't think that you can do that. So it's definitely something that we should be put in the IDEO portal, unless it's something that's coming out in Quebec.
I'm sure it's not in there. So for the sorting, if you're not able to sort, or there's any other functions that you're looking for, there's sort formatting functions in the widgets. The IDEO portal is the best place to put it, and we'll take a look at that and how we can address those requests. So the question came in, and I think this one's going to go to Thomas if you're ready for it. We went over metric indicators recently. How do you recommend reporting on the details of cases being transferred from and to departments? For example, if we want an indicator that shows daily transfers from Department A to Department X.
Okay, so I think that metrics is definitely the direction that you want to go with this, and it doesn't really matter if it's looking at the request or looking at incidents or whatnot. I mean, as long as you're able to actually capture when the actual department changes. So you would create a metric on the department within that particular table to say, okay, you want to capture it every time that particular one changes. And then obviously there's going to be a date that's going to be attached to when that department does change for that particular request. And then, the simplest way to do it, whether it be in report or PA, is just, point to the metric table, and you can do that inside of reporting, and then, group it by day. And then, depending on how much time frame that you're actually looking for. So if you're trying to do it for this month by day, then you could, just simply create you could do a list report. You could create a bar graph or anything that would actually show you all of the ones that transferred for a particular day. I don't think it's that difficult. The biggest thing is just creating the metric on the department, so it'll capture when that is actually changing. And if it happens every day or every other day, it doesn't really matter. It's going to capture every time that it changes anyway, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, I think that the one thing I'd add is the reporting is actually the easy side. It's the metric definition that can be challenging. I know I've seen this done before, and it depends on what your requirement is. Are we looking specifically from A to X, and I want to see A to Y differently, or it's just being transferred out, or it's just a transfer? Ostensibly, we're going to look at in the metric. We're going to need a scripted metric to catch those things specifically.
Right.
We're going to need a scripted metric to do it, depending on how we want to report out of it. I've seen people just cram the data into the metric value to report on it. In other cases, we actually might need a separate table to store it because we need the A and we need the to and from field. That data is in the audit, but we never want to report on audit because of size. So if we really need to see what's going on, we need to take a look at that. This is a common enough use case. It's certainly something we're looking at and putting in it's in our backlog and our roadmap on how do we address this more simply. But you can't do it today. And I think a scripted metric and then the reporting that Tom's talked about is how we're going to achieve that. So we have another question about touching tickets touched. And I'm going to tackle this. So the question is, we often get asked, and we all get asked this, about how many people have touched a ticket. For example, if Thomas and Adam are in an assignment group and they both put updates on a ticket, and Paul is not in the assignment group and also puts a work note on the ticket, is it possible to report the 3 agent updates on the ticket? The way and it all depends on what do you mean by touched, right? Is it if I update a priority field, I touched it. If I had a comment, did I touch it? If I reassign it, did I touch it? And that's different people do have different understandings. So you certainly have to solidify what is it that touching it means. And then I believe you're going to work on either a scripted metric or a business rule. And particularly if you want to know, agent touched versus non-agent versus customer touch, right? We really have 3 buckets. We have the submitter touched it, the person assigned to it touched it, or somebody in that group touched it, or somebody else internally touched it. Those are generally where I'd see the 3. And you would just need to have a business rule that logs that, or again, a metric should work if you look at created by, that when an update, a qualifying update happens, who did it, right? Look and map that out. Reassignment counts on incident, or on incident, so if that's what we're talking about or whatever. We certainly could add those fields onto the record and increment them just like we do with reassignment count. It could be a metric that comes through. Lots of ways of doing it, but they do need a lot of thought. The biggest challenge I've seen in this is not the technical side, but simply defining what does touched mean. Because if you don't do that, you just do any update, often it gets a little noisy. And if we do use a metric, it can be pretty powerful as well, because we can start to see how many people touch it. But lots of ways of doing it. Really need to focus in on what does touched mean and what are the groups, and then you'll implement it with whether it's a scripted metric or a new table or a field number. Lots of ways to solve it. And then another question came in about real time. You can't comment of you can't use real time score widgets on scripted indicators, but we're seeing an issue with an indicator source with related list condition. That should work. I am not. Scripted indicators are blocked for a reason, but related list conditions shouldn't be. So if you are trying to use a related real-time widget, real-time score, or real-time indicator, and it's not giving you the right result, or it's not working with that related list condition, well, I believe we're talking about related list condition. Please put a case in, and we'll take a look at that, because it should either, I could be missing it, it should either be documented that it's not supported, just like we do with the scripted indicators, or it should work, and I'm in the camp that it should work. So we definitely would want to take a look at that. So please put a case in.
Adam, on that question, I was actually looking inside the widget to see if there was something. I know exactly what they're talking about. I know that when you create a breakdown or something, if there's nothing, you can put an unknown. But I think what they're talking about is when you have a score widget, single score widget, and there's no data on that particular day, how it says no data available. Is there any way to change that to something else?
Right, and I am not aware of how you would do that. So
yeah. So
the question is, I have a daily indicator. I have a daily indicator, and I don't have data for yesterday. And so today is Wednesday. I expect to see data from Tuesday, but there is no data for some reason. What happens in performance analytics in the widgets is that we show the data from Monday, the last score available. And I'm not aware of a setting that would just say always show what's in there. There's some technical challenges, but that certainly seems valid. If you don't mind, and I don't see who submitted this. If you don't mind, please put that in the idea portal. I haven't heard that before, but I do understand what you're going for, that we don't want to see scores and think everything's good if that data was from 2 weeks ago for some reason. The job was, something was going wrong, and I don't have latest data available. I don't think it's super simple logically, because we always have to know when do we expect that to be there. But it's a really nice request. So if you don't mind, please put that in the idea portal so we can figure out how to address that for you. And a question came in about CMDB health index and relationship health index. I'm not sure what this is in relation to. If it's the CMDB health, and if you can comment in. If it's the health score, I don't recall what the problem is with that. If there is an issue, it's not calculated correctly, then I recommend putting a case in with support to get a definitive answer on what's going on. But I'm unclear as to what the issue is with the CMDB health. The health score, which I'm familiar with the health score, but I'm not sure what the issue is, or if there's a different health index. All right. Looks like we got through the backlog of questions. Thomas, was there anything else you wanted to wrap up with, or?
No, I mean, I think that was it. Some really great questions, and like you said, some really good stuff that can be put into the Ideal portal, and the next Academy in a couple of weeks, which I've already created an event and it is out there. We will be talking about Quebec and things that have come with that. So please join in a couple of weeks so you can get some really good information off that as well.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, Thomas, for this intro into indexing indicators.
Thank you.
I find it to be one of the most powerful things that we can do to really layer in how do we get value. Very configurable, very powerful. Once you got all the basics working, I think this is an area we certainly want to look at. And to wrap up, if you have questions we'll be back here in 2 weeks. But if you have questions between now and then, please use the community. I'm hoping we're all familiar with that, but lots of great stuff in there to help you. This session will be posted in our previous office hours archive. If you're looking for a question, you have a topic, take a look at it. We've gone back and improved the descriptions for things that are in there. So what I do, if I have a question, is I just go back to this page. I have it bookmarked and I go there a lot. Do a Control F and search for the words I'm looking for. So even if it's not in the title, you'll now see a lot of that in there. If people are asking questions, it's just such a great resource to go back. I think we're approaching 2 years worth of content in there. Tons and tons of great material. Those all have the recordings. They have the presentations. They have a lot of the links for them. So certainly you want to leverage this content. Lots of training and now learning. A lot of it is going to be refreshed for Quebec, I believe, in a few weeks. So take a look at that. For those of us with our sysadmin certification and our performance analytics certification, those deltas are going to come out in the not too distant future. So lots of great content in there that's there. And again, you're going to see lots of updates very shortly, but it will be a few weeks. It will not be tomorrow. It will come out after that. We'll certainly note that once it shows up. Knowledge 21 is coming in, so make sure you sign up to get updates about what's going on for that. Lots of exciting stuff, lots of great labs, and a lot of live sessions. Chance for you to talk to lots of experts besides Thomas and myself and those of us that are on here. Lots of great stuff coming in Knowledge 21. And I believe that's skipping there. Next time we were going to talk about the new analytics reporting solutions for Quebec. And again, we're always happy to hear from you. There's a post in there for you to post what you'd like us to talk about. We will talk about it. We got a lot of great feedback last time, and we are incorporating that into the schedule for our post-knowledge sessions. So until we see you again, make sure you use the community, catch up on those previous topics, submit your ideas. We have a couple of those to talk about in the idea portal on how we can make ServiceNow work better for you, and then take a lot of that training that's out there. Okay, we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Thanks again, Thomas, and we'll see you later.